Betsy Lane here with Usborne Books and More to share with you some great books that would be good for reading aloud to the young readers in your life. The first book, I always love it when a box of books comes to our house, and as we're going through it, my husband comments that that was a really good one. So this is one of my husband's favorites. It is Dad approved, and it's a great bedtime story because it's really got a nice rhythm and rhyme to it. So this is called Animally, and it tells about different animals and how they love their babies. So for example, I love you hugely like a whale, I love you shyly like a quail, cleverly like a fox, I love you powerfully like an ox. So then it goes through a bunch of different animals, ram and koala and moth and sloth, seagull, giraffe, and at the very end, I love you, birdily, buggily, animally, I love you so, for you're my family. So just a really sweet before bed book. Another great picture book, A Tale of Two Beasts. It's almost like two books in one. The first half of the story is told from the perspective of the girl, and she finds this wild beast in the forest and takes him home to become her pet. And then the second half of the book is told from the perspective of the beast that is found in the forest and snatched away and taken to live with this little girl. So a great one for showing that a story can be told from two sides. I know a lot of teachers love this one for teaching perspective in the classroom. So, a real fun, great story, Tale of Two Beasts. The next book I want to share with you, Usborne has lots of noisy books, and I'm going to be perfectly honest, I usually can't stand a book that makes noise. I avoid them, and I usually don't get them, but people were going crazy for this one, so I decided I needed to see what it was all about. And one thing that people were saying was they love how it exposes their kids and young readers to instruments, and that was something, I grew up and played instruments, and so I kind of want my kids to maybe be interested in that, so I said, let me check this out. So it tells the story of a group of animals preparing for a concert in the forest, and each animal plays a different instrument. And so you've got the squirrel practicing his flute, and the mole playing his glockenspiel, the weasel practicing guitar, the mole or the badger is practicing the piano, and the fox is practicing the violin, and at the end they all come together and they perform for the other animals in the forest, their concert. And here you see them all playing and all the other animals enjoying it. And so as you go through each animal, you can hear what they're playing. Here's the squirrel practicing his flute. So I hope you could hear that. Really clear sounding flute. And then at the very end you hear all the instruments playing together. So this is just a really cute story. There are some other noisy books that you can pick from. There's bedtime noisy stories. There is Swan Lake. So just some really nice classic sounding books. The next thing, Usborne has some great traditional literature to check out. For example, there are some single stories. For example, Cinderella. My daughter will say this is not the real Cinderella because it's not the cartoon classic version that most kids are familiar with. But it's great for them to see stories told in a different way, to notice similarities, differences between the different tellings of the same story. So this is a single story that Usborne has. There's Cinderella, Jack and the Beanstalk, Beauty and the Beast, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and just, shows kind of a different picture of Cinderella. Here's the fairy godmother, not quite, what most kids are used to seeing, and the coach actually still kind of looks like a pumpkin. And so it goes through and it tells the traditional story, but in a way that most of our kids are not quite used to seeing. Along with the single stories, Usborne has some great collections of stories. So here's two. This is Aesop's stories for little children. It's a collection of 9 of those traditional Aesop's tales that teach those important life lessons that we all should learn. Great illustrations, very colorful, but those great traditional stories are told in a little bit more simplistic way for our youngest readers to understand. So great collection there of 9 of some of the best known Aesop's fables: Hare and the Tortoise, and the Grasshopper, the Lion and the Mouse. So some great stories right there for you. Another great collection of traditional stories from around the world for little children. There are 5 stories in this book. Some folk tales, some pourquoi tales, how things came to be, how zebras got their stripes, Brer Rabbit, the Dragon Painter, why the sea is salty, Aladdin and his magical lamp. So again, some great traditional literature, great illustrations, the stories told, in a way that some of our younger readers are going to understand. There's also classic stories told in a collection, stories for little boys, stories for little girls. There are pirate stories and a big book of little stories, animal stories. So just some great collections. Get more books in one. And the last book that I want to share with you are meant for your more elementary age, but these are a collection of chapter books, the illustrated classics, and these are abridged versions of some really great traditional stories that many of us read and know. The Railway Children, The Canterville Ghost, The Wizard of Oz, Black Beauty, Secret Garden, Around the World in 80 Days, Heidi, Moonfleet. So for your kids who are ready for a bigger, longer chapter book type story, these are a great way to expose them to some of those great traditional stories that we all know, and but still have the picture support that some of them still need on almost every page. I read this one, and some of these stories I actually had never read. Now I kind of want to grab the original full version and check them out myself. But there are also some great collections in these longer chapter book set of illustrated stories. There's adventure stories, there's enchanting stories, there are longer versions of fairy tales, there's pirate stories, and there's Aesop's stories for an older audience. There's also Shakespeare told in abridged versions. Same story, nothing has been changed, but it's just been abridged and put into language for some of our younger readers to understand. And for some of us who struggled with some of Shakespeare ourselves, maybe a chance to read some of Shakespeare's plays in a more easier format to understand. There's also Dickens, and so there's some great classics for you to check out and read aloud and with your readers.